So there I was climbing over the wall through the ceiling. Anybody? Any takers? Is it you? Okay, go ahead. So there I was climbing over the wall through the ceiling.
So we had a storm last July that it was straight winds that kind of came through the entire city. We had a lot of damage and our power went out. But one of our physicians, our security system, the battery backup wasn't there. One of our physicians had gotten into the vestibule but couldn't get out because the doors automatically locked. So he got locked in the building. And so my IT guy, we were trying to get him out and ended up having to climb up through the ceiling tiles and over the wall
to extract the doctor?
It was last July. I'm like, you have those moments and you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this.
You're like, so this is my life.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do one more. So there I was with a blow dryer and a patient with her foot in the bed, butt cheeks spread. Heather, is that you?
I was in my nursing school year. I did an accelerated program as my second bachelor's degree. And my first clinical rotation was on the cancer unit at Rush University, right down the road here. And my preceptor was not a very nice woman. And I don't know if you know this about nurses, but they tend to think they're young. And so she was like, you need to go in there and help this woman with her bath. So she sends me into the room, and the door closes, and there's a little window, on the door. I'm like, okay, great. And the lady's like, okay, I just took a shower. She's like, she hands me the blow dryer. She was like, blow dry my butt crack. I was literally standing on the blow dryer. Standing here, like, dying. And she, sat down. She's like, now do my toes. And I was like, I can't. I'm like, but she's got cancer. She'll be fine. I've never blow dried a butt crack in my life.
Your school didn't teach that?
So how's the morning going, ladies? Wasn't Sam awesome?
Yes.
Fantastic. And you guys that have been to one of my summits before, you're going to get a survey from me and ask you some great things that you thought about and whatnot. So I encourage you all that are taking notes, make sure you give me that feedback whenever you get the survey so I can give it back to our awesome speakers. So with that said, a few of you asked, and this is a great intro to talk about Kim. A few of you guys asked how I ended up at Chief. And 3 years ago now, one of my lovely client groups that's here, 1GI, they made me an honorary member of their executive team, and they got a corporate membership or an enterprise membership with Chief. And they gave me one of the slots. So it was a huge compliment. Like you want to talk about feeling valued, like I felt valued that a client bestowed that on me. So that's how I got here. But then I found so much value in it that I got my own membership. And that's why we all get to be here. So one of the great things that came out of that first year was the Chief X Conference in Palm Springs, where I met this lovely lady over here, Heather, and I met this lovely lady over here, Kim Carson. So it's interesting because Kim and I were sat at the same table. Chief does this really neat thing when they host events. And it's crazy if you talk to anybody who plans the events, the psychology of it. They literally plan, I see you guys smiling over there because you know what I'm talking about. They have our bios and they strategically plant you at tables with people that they think you'll engage with. So Kim and I were sat together, and it was interesting because many of you know my story, speaking of mediation, know my story and all the trials and tribulations I went through. So I was coming out of that and trying to figure out my place with BTA, and Kim was going through her whole series of transitions and crazy stuff, and we just kind of developed a little kinship. So that's how Kim and I got to meet. One thing that I love about getting to introduce her is because all of us, and we were just talking about it, we think of tech, and we think of EMR, the doctors yelling, not one to do any button clicks. It's too many button clicks, or the clerical work we were talking about earlier. What you don't hear as a description when you think of anything techie in our world, creative flow, thoughtfulness, inspiration. And that's how Kim approaches AI. And if you read her bio, you see she has over 20 years of experience. You saw she did work at IBM Watson Education, a $60 million strategic educational initiative. Like, come on. And we get to learn from her this morning. So she is with Imagine Global. And you can talk a little bit more about that because you're far more well-versed in it than I am. But she focuses a lot on the ethical utilization of AI with a specific focus on advancing female healthcare, Fem Tech. So that's what we're going to learn about this morning. I would encourage you guys to ask her questions like you were doing with Sam. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kim.
No applause. When Nicole asked me to do this session, I was so honored, first of all, that she remembered me from our great dinner that we had at Chief X. But also because this is, like, for me, the coolest thing that I can possibly do, which is to arm all of you. So there's been this kind of, we talk about safe spaces being a dirty word. So I'm going to flip that for you today, and we're going to call this a brave space. I want you all to be so brave in your knowledge about what's going on in innovation, and particularly in femtech, which is a huge emerging field. Billions of dollars were spent in the last year on femtech, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And you are the experts in femtech, not the doctor that's telling you that they know everything about AI, not the administrator or the technical person that this is their industry slant, but they're really just a technical person. You actually know more about femtech, what's needed in feminine healthcare, than anybody else. And so I'm really excited to be here to have this conversation with you. So we're going to do it really like a conversation. I'm not going to lecture to you. What I did was I took all of your questions ahead of time, and they're embedded in the slides. And so we're going to go through each of your questions in that way. But first, I'll tell you a little bit about me. So 25 years in tech. My whole career in tech has been in social impact, which is very, very, very cool for me. So I did not come with a computer science degree. I just happened to fall into San Francisco in the 90s during the internet boom, the .com era. So I do have a 22 and a 17-year-old. Don't let this fool you. So I am of a certain age, and I've seen kind of the booms and the busts of data, of technical things. I actually was at UCSF during the time that the electronic medical record was happening. Boy, that was some fun stuff. And got to see how that was impacting hospitals, how that was impacting accreditation. And so my kind of flourish into this space has always been from what can we do to innovate in order to make us better humans and to make our world a better place. Not from a how can we make more money, how can we get more clicks, how can we market to more people. And I feel like that is a conversation that needs to be had by a lot more people. And so that's what I'm doing now. So Imagine Global is a venture firm. I never thought I would be in venture. It's another thing I never thought I would be doing. But I really feel like, I'd gotten to this place where I was running my own nonprofit. I was helping young postgraduates figure out ways to innovate in creative ways in order to change the world. And I had not beat the final boss. The final boss was the people that were giving the money. And so I was like, I'm going to figure out how to become one of the people that gives the money. And so that's what landed me at Imagine Global. That's what I get to do. We have a $1 billion AI fund that's all for beneficial AI. My focus is on femtech. My focus is also on deep tech around education, which is what my background is in as well. So that's about me. Let's get started. We're going to talk a lot today about how we balance this idea of innovation and privacy, particularly in feminine healthcare and Fem Tech, which, how many of you know what Fem Tech is? Does anybody have a definition? Ha-ha. Interesting. And not surprising and sad all at the same time. So Fem Tech is what we are calling this new emerging field of actually using data to take care of female patients, to include them in clinical trials, to personalize medicine that actually is based on data that we have around what happens with the female body. To actually, we actually have a company that I'm talking to that's mapping ovaries, like doing genetic mapping of ovaries, because not only is that good for drug discovery for females, it actually works for males too. So there's like a whole treasure trove of things that haven't been worked on, haven't been talked about, and now it's a whole industry, and it's called the femtech industry. There are a lot of emerging new companies, some of them you probably know, that are doing things like fertility tracking. They're doing things like menopause discovery. There is a very cool company that people should check out. It's a lab. They have something called Dionysus Health. For any of you that are in my kind of age range, they're actually perfecting a urine-based testing, home testing kit for perimenopause. And they've also, because they're women, they've also were really concerned about data privacy. So they have established a nonprofit to the side of the testing company that actually is the keeper of all of the data. Right? So really cool stuff is happening. It makes me super excited. It's like there's so much to go. There is also a thing called the X Prize. Do any of you know what the X Prize is? Anybody heard about the X Prize? Okay, the X Prize started, I think 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I think Elon Musk was one of the first funders of this thing. It's all about, 0 to 1 innovation. The first one was about space. This is where SpaceX came from, right? So people putting money into how do we get stuff out of the labs, out of the research centers, and into actually the hands of the people around us. Well, the latest X Prize that was just voted on, I actually had the privilege this fall of being in the audience as they were choosing the X Prize. So this is giant philanthropists, giant, experts in their field, is called the Double X Prize. It is they're going to launch a prize for Femtech, right? Where people will be able to enter, teams can enter ideas, compete, build product, and the winners usually get upwards of millions of dollars in order to take their things to market. So this is a really exciting time. And so it makes me really excited. So I hope that you guys get that vibe. So I'm going to look at my phone because every single thing here is really about questions you asked. So the whole framework that we're using was the first question. What are the biggest ethical considerations when implementing AI in patient care or administrative processes? So that's what our framework is going to be, is around that question, right? And everything that we will go through today will talk about how we do that. How do we make sure that we're being ethical? How do we make sure that we're eliminating bias? One of the biggest ways to eliminate bias is to get more people involved. So how many of you use AI? Awesome. It's getting better. How many of you are scared to death? Okay, good. We're going to change that today. So one of the things that is really important to understand about AI is that AI is not a replacement of our humanity. It's actually a mirror of it. So if we are thinking about how we are going to be representative of the population, guess what that means? We need people to actually be representative of the population. Right now, we have a really, really, really awful time with generative AI. This is large language models. This is the OpenAIs and the Claudes and all of that stuff, being very, very biased. Why do you think that is? Anyone?
It was created by a small group of people who are very similar to each other.
Right. And so I think, if you take anything away from today, take away this, that even if you're scared, I encourage you to jump in, right? These things are very easy to start to use, and we need you. It's not that we just want you in the data set. We actually need you in the data set. This is like a representation issue. So, with that, the first question, how can AI contribute to improving the accuracy of quality and interoperability in data? So let's talk about data as a foundation. In the last 25 years, since I have been working in this industry, there has been an explosion of data. There actually is a term I'll let you all steal that I use all the time called digital exhaust. So even the people that are scared in this room that aren't using things because they're scared, there's still digital exhaust from you, right? So you go here, you use a point of sale system, you do this, you do that. All of that is data. There's been a whole proliferation of data. There's so much of it, we don't even know what to do with it. And yet there's what we call data-rich, information-poor issues, right? DRIP issues, which is got tons of data, but no insight. Don't know what it means. Can't make head or tail of it, just have all of this data. So what happens? It gets sold to people that try to make you buy stuff, right? Instead of being used for things that actually might make the world a better place. And so one of the things that we are looking at when it comes to AI in particular is how we can take data that is not the same, not coming from the same system. So this goes to the interoperability. Not coming from the same system, not really labeled the same. AI is great at these kinds of tasks, right? It's really hard to have humans, if any of you have ever used a database where there's like a free field, which is like I get like shudders when I think about that, because you say something one way, I say something a different way. How do we extract really the insight out of data from these different systems with these different fields? Well, AI can do that for us. So that's one of the things that I really like about where we're going, is that the AIs that we have right now can kind of clean and normalize data for you. And they can do it really, really fast, right? Faster than most humans can do. And so that's kind of where we are in terms of data and data quality, right? So there are LLMs that are being developed. They're models, data models that are being developed. One of them is the NIH is actually developing a data model. We'll see how that goes with the funding. But this is really an area where we can really improve what we're getting out of data. Like, you guys now have all of these different systems, right? And it's not just the electronic medical record anymore. Now there's alert systems. Now there's this system. Now there's that system. How can we actually map what's happening where we can improve patient outcomes, where we can improve hospital efficiency? These are the types of things that AI does really, really well. The next question was, what are strategies for teams leveraging AI to surface treatment opportunities or gaps in care without overburdening clinicians with alerts? Alert fatigue is a real thing, right? And it's actually, at this point, I think I read somewhere that like 80% of alerts are just like immediately, like doctors just immediately go like, I'm not looking at them, I'm not looking at it. And so how can we leverage AI, or what's happening in the field right now is in order to deal with this kind of alert fatigue, right? So there's a lot of things going on. One of this is really about using AI systems that will personalize and prioritize alerts that are based on user behavior. So like I was saying earlier, one of the reasons we need you using the systems is because it helps to understand what your behavior is. And the AI can adapt then to what your behavior is. So if it knows that you're always going to ignore this alert, maybe it deprioritizes that alert. Maybe there's a different kind of alert that we use instead for like, no, really, we need you to pay attention to this one. And so this is something that I think has been coming online. It's coming online a little bit slowly. But one of the cases that I got to read about was really about kind of a sepsis early warning system that was created in a use case, just a small little use case pilot program with some nurses in a hospital. And as a result of the personalized behavior that the AIs now knew about the nurses that they were dealing with, they were able to actually catch more cases of sepsis. And they were actually able to also give the nurses less disruption. So it was a win-win. So going back to Sam, right? Like, these are things that are a win-win for everyone. So we should really make sure that the AI that we're using as we go forward is there to not interrupt care, but to actually augment the power of the clinicians that are working on these cases. When Nicole talked about IBM Watson education, so we were ahead of our time for sure. This was pre-LLM days. This was in the very early days of AI. We weren't even allowed to call it AI. We called it cognitive computing, so that people would not be scared and think the Terminator was coming. But one of the things that I stood up in IBM was a teacher companion, right? And it was specifically for the lowest, poorest, underserved schools in our country. And so you're talking about these teachers that have 40 kids in their classroom. They have no idea, how to standardize curriculum across them. And we had actually developed an AI that was able to take all of the data about you personally, about your kiddo personally, and say, okay, well, little Sally is having an issue with fractions. Little Sally really likes to cook. Here are some options and some things that we can serve up in order to have her learn fractions better. And I think about that particularly when it comes to healthcare, because it's the same, right? We should be really thinking about AI as a companion that enables our clinicians to actually have better face-to-face care, like really spend the time doing the things that most of them got into healthcare to actually do, right? Which is spend time with patients. And so that's where AI should be going, and has been going, but slowly. Are there proven models for using AI to identify clinical trial candidates effectively, especially within EHR limitations? Yes. Yes. This has, in the last couple of years, been a really big push from the NIH. There's something called Trial GPT. Does anybody know about Trial GPT? Trial GPT is a model, a large language model, which that's what this all is. So if you hear the term LLM, that's what that means. A large language model is essentially a technical model on the back end takes data, translates it, and makes predictions about what should come next or what is going to come next. And so Trial GPT, the NIH started to stand up, which is used to actually match patients to clinical trials. So when they did their small study to see if this was good, free text, the AI reads the free text, like oncology notes. It matches for complex criteria. We can actually train these LLMs to do that. Like, look for this, look for this. Here's indications of what we're looking for in that same kind of little Sally model, right? And in this case, the AI increased trial enrollment by 18% on a breast cancer study. 18%, right? So where we are trying to manually match people to trials and overlooking people based on bias because that we're human and that's what we do. The machine's not going to do that. It's going to be really looking at hard data in order to make matches. But that doesn't mean that you don't need to use it because it reflects our biases as well. AI is a mirror, so remember that. Next question. What are the biggest ethical considerations to ensure trust and fairness? Oh my goodness. There are huge ethical considerations when it comes to AI in general, mostly around data privacy. Data privacy is huge. There is something, and I want you all to take this back to like whoever your Dr. Oh So Famous is that's like, I know everything about AI. There's something coming online called homomorphic encryption. So you can say, do you know anything about homomorphic encryption, Dr. So-and-so? How are we using that in order to make sure that our data, that the patient data that we're using in our AI is safe? It's a very fancy term. All it means is that we encrypt the data so that the AI can run the algorithm, spit it out, and then we decrypt the data, right? So you don't get to see it. You don't see who is who. You don't get to see anybody's personalized information. This is something that there's a lot of startups that are coming online that are actually starting to develop homomorphic encryption. In the meantime, this is a big problem. It's a big problem using kind of the open models that are out there, the chat GPTs, because they don't have this encryption built in. And they're training based on the entire internet. And you have no guarantees that your data will actually not be exposed in that way. So being careful about what you're offering up is critical for hospitals, critical for all of your healthcare organizations. Also, we talked about this a little bit already, bias, right? So bias is huge, right? Ethical consideration and bias. There are numerous studies, I don't have to tell you all, about how people of different races are treated in a clinical care situation, right? How pain is treated, this kind of thing. The thing I love about machines versus humans is if we train the machine right, we can strip away a lot of that, right? I actually had a fellow, this is in government, but he had put together a startup that was pretty awesome that was actually about doing away with legislators and using AI agents instead for legislation. So like true democracy, going to you, asking you what you think, and then aggregating all that data in an encrypted way, and then serving up like, here's some policies that we should consider, here's some things that we should do. Much better than what we have right now. And so thinking about bias as a way that as an ethical consideration for how we use AI is a big one, right? We have been looking at lots of different ways to eliminate bias. We have not gotten there yet. The best thing right now is for us to use personally the LLMs when we can in order to make sure that there is representation by us. And then homomorphic encryption for when you're dealing with patient data. What else? Let's see. Human dignity. This is a big one for me. Right now, I am really deeply, deeply embedded in this idea of purpose and human purpose, because I think that we've been lied to, y'all, for the last 100 years or so, and told that our purpose is to work. And I'm not sure that that's what our purpose is. And as more AI comes online and replaces some of the jobs that are out there, there's going to be a crisis of purpose if it's not already happening, because those jobs aren't coming back. And I don't care how many people tell you that there's going to be new jobs. There will, but not really, right? Not really. The job will be to deal with the AI agents, and that requires one person where maybe it used to require 10 or 20 people. And I'm really nervous about people preying on people that are looking for a new sense of purpose. So the challenge, I think, right now in dealing with AI is a challenge around who we are as humans and who we want to be and how we want to live and how we want to serve each other. And I really think all of you are in a special situation because you're in a truly service-based type of work, right? So what is our purpose is going to be a big consideration going forward. And I challenge all of you, and I'd love to hear from all of you as you're navigating your own job spaces and thinking about, are things staying? Are they going away? What are you thinking about? What do you think is your purpose? How are you navigating that? I think there's a lack of spaces where we're having these conversations. And this is going to be some of the biggest conversations we're going to need to have in the next 5 years. Hands down. We're already seeing it. Mass layoffs. If anybody has a kid that's going into college or is in college right now, do not study computer science. Boy, no one said that. Guess what? Software engineering is going away. Personally, my kid just graduated from Berkeley. Lots of friends that were computer science majors, none of them can find jobs. And they were told, you're going to get $200,000 a year right out the bat. You're going to go work at Google. You're going to go work at Meta. It's going to be great. None of them can find jobs. So being really, really careful about what's going forward with purpose, right? What we are here to do, how we are going to change how we deliver the things that we need to deliver. What changes when AI is in the picture? These are questions that really, really need to be answered. There's not enough people answering them. If anybody wants to leave their job and come join me and start to talk about the ethics of purpose and where we go, I'm taking applications. Yes.
Where do you think some of the best conversations are happening right now about this? Because it's so easy to get on and get all sorts of conspiracy theory, fear-mongering, but where are the good conversations happening?
Yeah, so there are some really great independent research institutes. I don't know if anybody knows, does anybody know about Timnit Gebru? And it's the Distributed AI Research Institute. Timnit was a Google engineer in Google Research. She's phenomenal. She's brilliant. This wonderful, beautiful black lady, and she wrote a paper that said, oh no, when the Transformer paper came out and everybody said we're going to start using these LLMs and we're going to start doing all this stuff, and she was asking these questions immediately. What are jobs going to look like? What's going to happen? What's happening with people's data? And guess what Google did? They fired her. It was a big scandal. happened about 5 years ago. But since then, she started a research institute that she runs that has some great policy that comes out of it about what are we doing now. There are a lot of smaller kind of think tank organizations that are out there that are actually having these conversations. The problem, from my perspective, is that they're so distributed. They're all like kind of working in these little independent silos, and I really think this is a big conversation that needs to be had. Right? So we need to pull all of their data, all of their research that they're doing in all of these independent ways together. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not so much a question, but a thought as you're talking about like purpose and stuff. That I heard somebody say recently that what we want AI for is to like do this data and these menial tasks and the stuff that like we don't really want to be doing anymore, and then leave time for humans to be able to do like art and creativity and stuff like that, and that what is in fact kind of happening now is the opposite, that like AI is taking so much of the art and creativity side of things and not as much of the menial data stuff. I mean, obviously it's still doing some of that, but I guess I was just curious your thoughts, because that has stuck with me since that person said it to me. I just keep thinking about how it's kind of like twisted where we want it to be.
Yeah, so that's where I spend the rest of my time, really, is in this idea of creativity. I believe, this is just Kim's belief, that that creativity is actually, and imagination is something that's really uniquely human, and something that we should be able to do. It depends on how you're defining what creativity is. When it comes to things like art practice, there's issues around what people consider like IP. And that for me is not actually about the creativity, it's more about our economy, right? And how we monetize things. But I think that there is a space for humans to get back to this idea of creativity. As I said before, AI is a mirror. It's actually, pulling back what we've already fed to it, right? Like it's not coming up with really any new insights, right? It's maybe making some connections that we're not able to make because it's got more data to pull from. It's got more compute power, right? But at the end of the day, when you think about creativity, or when I think about creativity, I think about very, very disparate things that somebody goes, that's actually connected to that. And that's not something machines can do. And I hope that we're going to get to a place where we do more of the creativity. I think we have to be really careful about how we define AI doing creativity. AI does marketing. Marketing is predictive analytics. It's not really creativity, right? So unless it's creating, creativity, unless you want to consider like getting people to buy more shit, a creative practice. But these are things that I'm like, like where is the conversation happening around what does it actually mean to be creative? What does it actually mean to have creative practice? And how is that different than what the AI is doing? DALL-E, Midjourney, yeah, they can create a picture for you. But in most of the artists that I know, they're using AI actually to inspire new connections for them, not as a replacement for what they would normally do. And so that's kind of the challenge, I think, for us as a society, right? Is like, how can you use what the machine pulls together to actually help you think about something differently? And so, this is Kim's utopia. Go ahead.
Yeah, the utopia sounds nice.
Yeah.
I am curious, this is probably one of the only spaces I've been in where there's conversation about AI and like the reality that it will take jobs. And so I'm wondering how you have that like intentional conversation about purpose when there's so much trying to redirect around this idea of like, no one's losing jobs over this. It's gonna give you more time.
Yeah.
to do the stuff only humans can do, and just from your unique role, like in this AI space, like how is that a shift that's happening? Like, are people really embracing that reality that exists, that AI is going to take more jobs and open to having that conversation, or is it still being really denied?
You know this is where it's scary for me. You know who's actually thinking about it? The people we don't want thinking about it. Because they're thinking, how do I now create a purpose economy? How do I sell you things that help you discover your purpose? Right? That's scary and icky, right? So we're seeing a little bit of it around this idea of wellness, the wellness economy. It's like, hey, learn how to become embodied and da-da-da-da, and do this and do that. But really, it's just the same old paradigm, right? It's you give me money and I give you a product. And so there is those people that are thinking about it. I think there's not enough people on the social impact side that are thinking about this. There's not enough people that are thinking about this from a policies perspective with our current administration. Yikes. I don't know that there will be for a while. People are figuring out, you know, I was talking to a friend the other day who was telling me that he was talking to a historian and talking about the idea of what technology has become is there used to be in, you know, Victorian times this kind of shadow puppeteering thing where the whole goal was to trick you, you know, through the shadows into believing something differently than what was actually happening behind the curtain. And that's where tech is today, right? My kiddo was at a function the other day, and he was talking to a engineer, a social media engineer, software engineer, and he said, so, you know, how do you like your job? And he said, you know, frankly, the kid said to him back, in his 20s, mid-20s, says back to him, well, my job is to make you more addicted to your phone. Is it working?
Wow.
So where are the conversations happening with our young people about how the structure is set up, how it's failing, right? Like all the software engineers that just came out of Cal last year, poor kids that can't find jobs. What's the transition that's happening is happening right in front of us, but no one's really talking about it in the way that they need to be, and nobody's really advocating for it. And so this is why I started my nonprofit fellowship, why I'm trying to make sure that we're having these conversations and we're starting a movement that actually proliferates them. Because, yeah, we're being hoodwinked. Go ahead.
Yeah, so as recently as Tuesday, Carol Fest, we're introducing an AI solution, and it's not just the fact that it can replace humans, but it's actually more efficient. It's, they do a better job even. And so, you're having me kind of morally gut check myself. But I also have, a 20-year-old, despite, tired. And
we look good.
And so as I'm kind of thinking about, guiding the youth into the future, what kind of careers out there would you recommend to your own children? Like what that are AI friendly or AI proof?
Yeah, so I actually I've encouraged both my sons to do the thing that lights them up, that doesn't feel like work. For my one kid, that's math.
Well, I'm concerned about math. So one of my children, they're going into education. I think that's going to be okay for now, and that lights them up, whatever. My youngest is a mathlete.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned about finance going completely into the AI.
Because you said finance.
Yeah.
So what I told my kid is he does abstract math. It's pure mathematics. We will always need mathematicians to discover the next algorithms, to discover the next thing beyond AI. We will always need that because that's creativity.
Sure.
That's things that don't exist, theorems that we can't solve, right? And so that's the area. And he actually said to me not too long ago, in like some crazy thing, because he never thanks me for anything, thank you for not pushing me into applied mathematics. Thank you for not saying, go do finance, go do data science even, go do like these types of things, because I don't know that they're going to be around much longer. And I'm like, I agree. So math is probably fine if you want to be creative with it.
We also need people to pay you for it, like that's the whole, you still need people to pay you for that creativity, which is like a whole other part of it.
So the secret conversations that are going on in Silicon Valley right now are all about universal basic income.
That's exactly what I'm thinking about as you're talking. I'm like, to me, AI means universal basic income because there's going to be too many people who can't get work done.
Right. Yeah, these are big conversations that are being had. I don't know that people are figuring it out or are that motivated to. The people that are having the conversations always concern me. I'm like, does anybody realize that who's leading the AI conversation right now is not just the same stereotype, right, of the tech nerd. It's actually the same dudes as 20 years ago. Like these are the same guys. And they really messed up, and we know it. And we're letting it happen again. Why are we doing that to ourselves? And I think it's because we're scared. I think it's because there's not enough of us in the conversations. I think it's because we're not focusing on the right things. I can get into a whole thing with you about how I think that business in general is based on masculine energy, and feminine energy is different. Masculine energy is about iteration and disruption and breaking things down, and feminine energy is about birthing and evolution and actual creation. And so there's a whole lot of conversations that have to happen. And it's AI that's forcing these conversations, I think. But we have to get involved, and we have to get into the conversation. Yeah.
I was just curious, so the two young ladies that are over here, I'm guessing you have a unique perspective on what she's talking about because you're at a different part in your life than we are. So what are you guys, if you don't mind me asking, what are you guys experiencing, or what are you thinking as she's talking right now? Because you're at the beginning of your careers. What are you guys hearing or thinking about with AI?
I'll say for me at least, like, I've noticed a lot of my friends have stopped actually, like, thinking about things and, like, using their brains in school. Mm-hmm. So you can just ask ChatGPT, like, how do I do my homework? And then if you figure out, like, how to do a certain process, like, you can take that to an exam, but they're not really actually, like, learning it. But then also, like, a concern that I was just thinking of while everyone was talking was just, like, if AI becomes, like, super prominent, how are we making sure everyone has access to, like, use these things that are going to, like, kind of take over, I guess, America and the world?
Yeah. Big questions. The thing about education, super real. The critical thinking is another thing that I think that we do differently than machines. And so, you know, if you are going to talk to your kids about what kinds of professions to get into, probably one that has to do with that was not going to go away anytime soon. But yeah, I'm super concerned about how things are being used. There's a lot of advice I usually give to kids that ask about how to use. I want you to use the tech, because I'm of the age, as are most of the women here in this room, where we may have been in school and we weren't allowed to use the internet because our professors didn't know how to use the internet. And if we didn't use it anyway, we wouldn't be where we are today with innovation. So I want you to use it, right? Like, I don't want to say don't use AI ever, but I want you to use it in a smart way. And that requires a whole new kind of pedagogy, a whole new kind of way that we teach. Yeah.
I've been more cautious about using AI just because when I first learned about it, it scared me. And it also had like environmental impacts. But at my grad program, they have been very intentional about how it's being implemented and have also like
encouraged us and walked us through how to use it in a more ethical way and focused way that it can be to our advantage. So they're really pushing us to not be scared of it because it is part of the future.
Yeah, good. I get the environmental concerns. So there is a big giant push right now around how we get models that are actually less harmful to the environment. So these things are super harmful to the environment. Every time that you have the little bubble comes up on ChatGPT, it's actually regenerating the entire algorithm again. So if you think about what data centers, the amount of energy they need to power them and to cool them, every time you ask a question, every time a word in a response is generated, it goes back and it cycles through the entire data center, right? So this is a huge environmental impact. It's a huge waste of resources. This is math. So I met a young woman. She blew my mind. She was a PhD in mathematics. She, quantum, actually. She figured out a way to make a holographic algorithm. I don't even know what she's talking about. She sure is cute. And I know this stuff. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, I figured out this algorithm. I was doing a paper. I was writing a paper. And I can compress an LLM by 40% just from a mathematical equation that I developed. And I said, okay. So, yes, we're going to invest in her company. I said, okay, what happened next? She said, well, what happened next was all my professors told me to leave school and start a company. And they said that they would be on my advisory board. And I was like, okay. So she went from, this traditional path, right, like where she probably would have been an academic, to now an entrepreneur. And this is, another example, I think, of how women think and how we create, right? Like she was like, how do I make something that actually deals with the environmental impacts of something that could be useful to all of us and useful to humanity, but not in its current form?
What's her name so we can?
Rachel Sinclair.
Okay.
So maybe just to add to the conversation, something you said to me thinking about, I attended an ACHE meeting. It stands for American College of Healthcare Executives, and Brene Brown is speaking, and she gave the metaphor that in leadership we are plumbers and poets.
Yep.
And that the component of plumbing is like we have to get shit done. And the component of poetry is that we're creative thinkers, we're compassionate beings, and that, right, we're humanity.
Right.
And so she was talking about how AI can probably help us and will help us be faster, better, more efficient plumbers, but can never be the poet, the connector, the human. And what it's making me think about is that many of us in the room, or I'll speak for myself, have been rewarded and fit in to rooms that maybe I didn't think I fit in because I'm a hell of a plumber.
Mm-hmm.
And I will outwork you every day.
Yep.
Right? But in fact, my magic may not be in plumbing.
Right.
It may have always been in poetry.
Right.
And for us to reimagine what does that mean for us as female leaders, when in fact we've often been rewarded or thought we needed to work as a plumber. So I just sort of share that as a framework.
Yeah, I've got some great, I wrote a blog about that in the beginning of this year, and it's about the idea of grind versus flow. And it's really, for me, this is like where I am right now. So, I spent the first 20 years of my career doing that plumbing and doing it really well. Got all the way to CEO, right? Like doing it as well as I could. And then I was like, oh, this really sucks. Like it keeps going, right? And boy, it would be much better if we did things this way, or it would be much better if the world looked a little bit more like this. And that's that creative part, right? Like, and so, yeah, for me right now, this is the scariest time in my life because I'm like, I'm not going to do that. As easy as it would be for me to go into, a job at Anthropic or DeepMind or something like that, no. Because that's not where I'm satisfied. That's not where my purpose lies, and it's not helping anything, right? It's just giving them more plumbing, which we don't want to do. So I don't think there's very much more. There's a couple more questions. Let's see. Now I've lost my clicker. It's no longer clicking for me. It's all right. It's okay. There we go. So we kind of talked through this. Yeah. We talked through all of these things. So yes, there was a question about the administrative burden, right? Like, are there any specific platforms or tools that I've seen that work that help with administrative burden? Actually, most of them, right? There are everything, the new terminology for you to go back to, homomorphic encryption, AI agents. AI agents. AI agents are just, you hear agentic AI. It's basically just replacing you on the team, right? So this relates to the job loss thing. There's lots of them. They're getting really, really good. For those of us who have elderly parents, here's an agent thing that's a little scary, but it's my duty to help you here. We've gotten so good with LLMs at mimicking voice that hackers are actually calling your elderly parents and getting money out of them or whatever. If you don't already, with the folks that you care about that are of a certain age that don't understand that this is not a person, it's not you, it's an AI agent that's requesting money or telling you something that it shouldn't, have a code word. I have a code word with my parents. Have a code word. I'm like, if anybody calls and says they're me, if they don't say this word, they're not me. Do that. That's just a safety thing. We've gotten so good at deep fakes. I'm sure you've seen that. There was that weird thing going around not too long ago where somebody had deep faked a whole conversation between Keanu Reeves and Elon Musk that never happened. Not to mention, like, they were 20 years younger than they actually are, like, because they used old pictures and video. But it's gotten so good that people are getting faked out left and right. And so I would definitely say that this is something to be wary of, but it's something to also understand, is the idea of these AI agents. So AI agents it's actually not really a new thing. They've existed for the last 10 years at least. There was my kiddo played travel baseball. There was a app called Game Changer that used to keep score on. Yeah, travel ball. Yeah, Game Changer existed when my kid was playing, so 10 years ago, and has been able to take the statistics. You ever see that feature where it takes the statistics from the game and it makes a story like it's a newspaper article? That's an agent. It's an AI agent.
It's really funny to read when they're like 10 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so dramatic.
It's so dramatic, right? Like, it's mimicked the writing of a sports journalist, right? Based on the statistics that you've just inputted into the little diamond coloring in. So agents are coming, agents are here, more and more agents will be coming. I actually am excited for some agents, so anybody here who is a stressed out working mom, I've been like wanting my own wife for like ever. Yes. There are agents that can do this for you. There are actual applications that you can use today that they manage you. They manage your household, they can manage your calendar, they can do all of the things. And so I actually use a number of them. Come talk to me later if you're interested. One of my favorites is one that actually is my EA, my calendar keeper, and it blocks out my time, but it actually blocks out my time based on things I tell it, like, hey, I need 4 or 5 hours every week of creative time. I need this, I need that, I need this. I don't want to do this between this and this time. I need to make sure that I meditate every day. I need to make sure that I eat lunch every day, right? And the calendar is set up for me. So lots of things that I've seen that can actually help with most administrative tasks, most administrative burden. I really want like Rosie the robot. I'm waiting for that one. But that's not done yet. That takes robotics. That's a whole nother thing. Getting better, but not quite there yet. Let's see. Other questions? I think there was one more. Yes. Professional development. Right? So how are we seeing AI being used, or what are the best ways that AI can be used in professional development opportunities? I've seen a number of things lately that have been really, really cool. There's a woman in Florida who has built out a platform for coaching that actually does matching as well. So it's like it matches you to specific coaches based on specific things that you want to do or learn or competencies. This is very cool. I've seen just personalized things that are agents, actually, that can help you with your own professional development. You can use ChatGPT for this, right? Like, you can ask, based on what you know about me, if you're using it already, where are some areas where I might need a little bit of strengthening? And actually, AI is pretty good at that, right? Because it's pattern matching. So it's looking at all of the things it knows about you, and it's going, oh, based on other people and other things that I know, then here's might be some areas that you want to explore. So I think that's really good. If you are interested and feeling a little bit advanced, I can even show you all later today how to make your own GPT. So I have my own GPT. I have Kim GPT. Kim GPT, I have a couple of Kim GPTs. But I've actually trained models on my own stuff. So it's not trolling the entire internet. It's only looking at my stuff. My talks, my presentations, my writing, my preferences. And I talk to Kim GPT a lot. I talked to Kim GPT this morning. Right? Like, hey, Kim, what's up? I'm thinking about writing a sci-fi novel, and here's what I'm thinking about, and what do you think? And Kim GPT is like, yeah, actually, based on our couple of conversations, here's some topics that maybe you could explore in that sci-fi novel, or here's some things you're already thinking about. And so that's actually a really, really cool way to do your own development and your own discovery, back to the idea of purpose, your own discovery of purpose, right? You may not see something that you're doing creatively that the AI actually will see and say, oh, yeah, actually, here's where you're being creative every day. Maybe it's cooking, maybe it's gardening, maybe it's how you facilitate interactions with your friends. There are things that you're doing that you're like, I'm not creative. Everybody does that. I'm not creative. I just am not. Not true. And so ask the GPT. What am I already doing? What could I do to make this more of a habit? What could I do to make this more of an intentional practice? Being creative. These are prompts that are awesome. They work all the time. I actually asked the GPT, my Kim GPT, to, it was during a workshop. We were talking about building AI from a place of love instead of a place of fear. It's a little woo-woo, but it was great. And I asked my Kim GPT to write me a love letter based on what it knew about me. And it was so beautiful that it made me cry. Almost made me break up with my partner. I was like, I don't think you can do this. And then we took that love letter. So it was an exercise that we did as a group. And then we took that love letter. And these are like top VPs at top AI companies. Like this was like a room of like deep technical people, right? We take the love letter and we ask it to help us write a ritual or a mantra or a prayer for our community based on that love. Right? How can we build things from this place of where we were deeply, truly human, instead of building from like, I just want you to buy that thing. I just want to climb that ladder. I just need to get to the next thing. And so there is a spaciousness, I think, that you can use the AI for that can actually help with your own personal development and in turn your professional development, because it may be, like me, that you spend enough time in AI. I didn't tell you my AI story. When I got into, I had been in AI for probably about 15 years, working with these schools, doing this tough stuff. And funding got pulled, and so of course this was Title I schools, so the whole project fell apart. And once the project fell apart, IBM was like, well, Kim, you're a great plumber, so we're going to put you into a biz dev around IP, AI IP. So if any of you know anything about IBM, they're the largest producer of patents in the world and have been for a very long time. So how IBM actually makes money, don't tell them, turn off the camera, don't tell them that I told you this, but is they sell and license their IP and sue people that may make something similar. That's how all the money is made. And I got put into that unit, from like this very social impact unit to this. And I was working with some researchers in a lab, and they had developed this very cool piece of technology that was a sensor that could listen. It was using AI algorithm to listen and actually give insight by listening. And so I was like, how do you want to use this? And the researchers were like, well, we think there's great use case for like heavy machinery and stuff like that. Like you hear a sound, like it's like when your car clicks or something like that. It's really dangerous to send technicians out to some of these big pieces of equipment. And so we could help save lives. We could do all of this stuff by putting this sensor on the side of these big industrial machines. And I was like, that's great. That's how we're gonna take it out. And 3 days later, this was the first Trump administration, I got a call from my boss who said, we are going to sell that technology to Homeland Security to listen to the camps at the border.
Listen to what?
The camps at the border. And I fell out. I was sobbing, crying in the airport. I had called my mother. I was like, I don't know, I can't do this anymore. And my mom said, well, what do you, she's like, I get it. What do you normally do in this situation? And by this time I had an AI practice. I had like my Kim GPT. And so I started talking to my Kim GPT, like, what do I do? And the answer for me was to leave IBM. Wow. It was a lot of back and forth. It was a lot of kicking and screaming. But it was, I would never go back, right? Like it was an eye-opening experience for me to see where I could be of use in other ways that I wasn't thinking about. So that's how I would use for professional development and for personal development. Whole person is really the important thing here. That's how I would use the AI. I'm still carrying this thing even though it's not working. Okay. So I think the last question might have been around personal touch. Yes. So the use of AI annotations in medicine, how is it changing how is it changing face-to-face interactions? Well, it should give you more time. There are AI scribes. This is a great use case for an agent. It should be able to allow the clinicians to focus on what the clinicians do best, which is that face-to-face interaction, by taking over things like scribing or taking over things like you know, the inputs of data into electronic medical records. There are things that are coming. There are startups that are really looking at this area and really tackling this area. And it may be one of you that develops one of these things. So don't count yourself out, right? You see this stuff every day. Go ahead.
I've had patients afraid of that scribe technology. Should they be?
I think that this is when you get back to Sam's, earlier conversation. It's a negotiation. There are a lot of people afraid. I spend most of my time talking about trying to help alleviate fear around AI. I've spent most of my time for most of my AI career doing that, right? Like, so talk about parents in classrooms afraid of, I actually had a mom in Texas said, "You're not using that AI on my kid. What if he wants to buy a gun one day?" Wow. But valid.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think you're looking for how do you make it a win-win for both that patient and that clinician, right? Like, I understand that you're really scared. You know, what are your concerns? Is it about your data? Is it about, what is it about, right? Like, and then maybe we can talk that through. Because what you know is that scribe technology helps that doctor have a much more personalized experience with that patient. Maybe they don't want that, but you don't know until you ask. So I think that's part of it.
There's a lot of people who don't know that that's happening anyway, right? There's ambient AI constantly.
Yeah.
Everything is like, so at least it's being used for good by people.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take that every day.
Did you suggest to her that maybe we need AI to prevent people from buying guns, or current way things are going? Or you didn't enter the
Yeah, no, I don't go there because I was raised in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, where we got off for the first day of hunting season every year, and so I'm like, okay. Go ahead.
I love the intertwining of the negotiation and the AI stuff. That makes me very happy. But I was wondering, you're kind of saying like dive in, you know, like let's use it for all these things. Should we dive in at this rate before they have figured out the environmental impact stuff? Like,
It's too late.
It's too, yeah.
So my grandmother would say, the toothpaste is out of the tube. It's too late. So, I mean, yes, maybe 20 years ago, we could have had that conversation. But where this all looks new to most people, looks like it's been the last couple of years, I can tell you that's not true. And so now it's like, how do you get in and get ahead in order to be this Rachel Sinclair's and come up with new ways of actually dealing with damage that's already been done? If we sit and wait by the side of the pool, then we will wind up in Terminator.
Maybe my not using it is the difference maker in the environment.
Yeah, I could show you OpenAI's new user acquisition from last month and change your mind. You're not making a difference.
I just have a comment about fear, and disclaimer before I start, my entire career has been in marketing, so I'm the one that's out there convincing people to buy this shit.
Yeah.
My side gig, I'm an educator at a university, and it was very fear-based when the teachers and students came out using AI prior to teachers even understanding it was on the radar. So the first line of defense was we were going to come up with tools to detect who is using AI and punish.
Yep.
Instead of leaning into how do we teach the students to responsibly use the AI, and we've made a shift. And in my content marketing class, I went to AI, talk about personal development, to rewrite my curriculum because there are no textbooks that will teach you how to teach this. And 10 minutes with the right prompts, and the most beautiful curriculum.
Yep.
Many units on AI, and tying it back to negotiation and that quote from Adam Grant.
it's the questions that you ask and the prompts that you give, and it's like we're teaching these students a higher level of, you really have to think. Don't just put in whatever. And
That's
now
right.
I can tell, and I'm grading them more on how they're utilizing the AI, and I encourage
Awesome.
every assignment.
Awesome.
On one other quick thing, so in my other life, my healthcare job, we have a very difficult implementation and training and onboarding the software and the consumers, et cetera. And we have just built a bot to scrape from our own training so that we can scale our lab, our technicians, our histologists, and we haven't deployed it yet. So I was excited to hear about Kimbot. We'll see. It's very new in this space to try that. I
Yeah,
don't know if
although it's
gonna
not.
work or not. I mean,
Yeah.
fine, like, you know, for us.
No. I mean, yes, it's new, but it's not. The tech has been there, right?
Right.
But the application has not. I think one of the things that a conversation that I had with a digital artist that was super, super beautiful about 2 years ago was he was an adamant non-user of everything AI. It was an IP issue. It was like, this is my stuff, and I don't want my stuff out there, and I don't want people using my stuff and imitating my stuff. And he was like an avid naysayer of anything AI. Well, human stuff happened. He actually lost his entire studio to a wildfire. And because he's a digital artist, he was able to go back to people who had purchased his art and get a copy. And he used the copies to train his own bot, and now is making new, different, better, he thinks better art than ever, because it's trained on him. That's what I want to see, right? Like, I want to see that for everybody, right? Like, things that are able to take you into a new space of creativity because they're making patterns and matching things in a way that wasn't done before. But I love how you've changed your curriculum. I think this is really important. Like, how you prompt is very important, and what questions you ask are important. I think, what you were saying about, your friends that are just like, and they don't learn anything. It's important to draft. You can start a draft in a GPT, but it's not your final product ever. And like, the biggest question is, like, if you don't ask any other question to your GPT, this one question is a great way to start, which is, how did you come up with that? No one thinks to ask that of the AI, but it'll tell you. It'll be like, oh, I grabbed this source, I went here, I did this, I thought about this, I looked at this. And then you can figure out, oh, that's wrong. Like, no, let's not do that. Let's go here instead, or let's look at this instead. It's the simplest question you can ask. It's like, yeah, like, what? How did you come up with that?
What do you think would happen if you asked it, what are your concerns?
I was thinking of, like, tell me more about this.
Yeah. It definitely can help, I think, with your practicing of negotiation. I use AI a lot for role play. So I'm like, hey, here's some information about the person I'm about to go into a negotiation with. Or here's some information about the audience that I'm about to have. Kim GP knows all about you guys. Right? Like, what should I talk about? Right? Yeah.
Your questions.
Yeah.
With your own GPT.
That's right. That's right.
So Kim, I think you're going to get hit up a lot to help everybody start their own little GPT.
Cool. I'm in. Any other questions? Is there anything we didn't cover? Go ahead.
I'm the CEO and co-founder of a data security company, and the sentiment around why we created this company is that I have survived a breach as a clinical informatics executive with a large health system. And the thing that I could not get out of my mind is how this is going to affect patients and caregivers. I'm a nurse first. And I have PTSD from that experience. And so the creation of this data security company comes from that spirit. And now I am deeply questioning, am I building it? And part of the reason that I wanted to be a CEO and co-founder is because I wanted to build something. You know, I wanted to birth something. And in that, now I am, since my job is visioning for this company, right? And I'm naturally akin to vision. How am I doing that with the highest level of integrity and social justice and equity and thinking? Am I visionary enough to build that company in such a way that it starts as data security and protection of patients, but then how does that evolve as AI evolves in healthcare? And so I guess I need to build my own.
I was going to say a great prompt for you. Yeah,
You know.
a great prompt for you would be tell me a story, a speculation where the future is great.
Yeah.
How did this company contribute to that great future? That's a great way to start thinking about how you can prompt a GPT to take you into a space of creativity. And it'll make you like some, it'll be like once upon a time, like in the year 2545, right? Like it'll start in kind of a traditional storytelling kind of way. But you'd be surprised how many nuggets you'll get out of that. Yeah. Anybody else? Anything else? All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.